We just concluded a prayer service that was an imperfect human way to bring healing and closure to the families that are gathered with us today and to the city of New Orleans. We are joined by representatives of the whole city, of the city government of New Orleans. Our council members are with us, our state legislators are with us. I thank them for being here. We are joined with members of the new New Orleans Police Department, Chief Harrison and our commanders and our deputy chiefs. I thank them for being here. We are joined by our faith leaders that represent the faith community in the city of New Orleans. We are joined by our friends, and we are joined by council members and counselors, lawyers who have helped guide the family and the cities through this very difficult process. And we are joined today by the Madison family, the Glover family, the Brissett family, the Robert family, and other families that have been impacted by a very dark moment in the history of New Orleans. During the prayer service, the last song that was sung was a song that was written by the great Sam Cooke. You all know it. It is entitled "A Change Is Gonna Come." It takes us through a painful journey and a painful history of a people in a time that were oppressed, but sings with great hope and great joy that we can be better than who we were. We are here to proclaim from the highest mountaintop that the city of New Orleans, in all of its agony and in all of its joy, can transform itself from a city of violence into a city of peace. But that cannot be done until each and every one of us, in our hearts, in our minds, in the actions that we take, in the actions that we decide not to take, as a community or one community, and decide to be a community of peace. 12 years ago, on August 28th, all was good in many, many ways for some of us, but not for all of us. And then a man-made disaster struck, which took 1,800 lives, destroyed 250,000 homes, hurt 500,000 homes, and in a moment's notice seemed to take from us everything that could be taken. And as we all tried to help each other get out of the water, even in those darkest times, there were angels among us that we never knew. But evidently there were demons as well. And as all of us were trying to get out of the water and to try to find safety, some of us were crossing a bridge, trying to get to the other side, a figurative bridge and a little bridge. Some of us were walking towards what we thought was safety. Now let me say this very, very clearly. During that period of time, there are men and women, first responders, men and women of the New Orleans Police Department, EMS, people that came to help us, that did heroic things. They left their family to save others. And many, many, many men and women, especially in the NOPD, are selfless individuals that work really, really hard and live in their communities, and the communities and they are one. But at that particular time, in that particular moment, as happens over time, there are some individuals that do the wrong thing for the wrong reason and then make it worse by either denying it or covering up. And there were some actions that took place on the Danziger Bridge and in other parts of the city, and in some instances, for one of the families here months before, that were wrong. And we come here today, 12 years later, after all of the rebuilding, after all of the work that we have done, to do the hardest thing for a city. One of them is to say, I'm sorry. And the much more difficult thing is to say, I forgive you. because both of those are pathways towards a healing for individuals and for communities. And so as we stand here today, we have come to the conclusion of a very painful episode, not only in the life of the city, but a life of the family members that are with us today. In some instances literally, and in some instances figuratively. This prayer service was an attempt for the city, in its very imperfect way, to say very publicly, and I stand in the shoes not only of the mayor of the city of New Orleans today, but I stand on the shoulders of all of the people that have governed the city since the beginning of its time. And I stand instead for all those who are about to come, because we are continuous government, that on behalf of the people of the city of New Orleans, how intensely sorry I am to the members of these families and to the people of the city of New Orleans for the actions that were taken during that fateful time when these individuals were looking for people to protect and serve, and they got the exact opposite. For many, many years, those criminal trials went on. You saw some actions in state court, then you saw some actions in federal court, and it was not until all of those matters were resolved that the city of New Orleans could then take the meek step of trying to resolve through civil lawsuits the damages that were done that can never be repaid, and money can never fill the hole. But I am hopeful that an apology on behalf of the city, and then forgiveness from the family, as almost unfair of us it is to ask that, but equally unbelievably has been granted by the mothers and the fathers and the brothers and sisters, has been granted to this day. And I am hoping that in some sense, the strength of these families will help the city find peace in our future. We did not wait, as you know. 7 years ago, we asked the Justice Department to work with us. We are involved in the most comprehensive consent decree in the history of the United States of America. Chief Harrison and the commanders and the deputy chiefs standing behind me are committed to make sure that the way we hire, the way we supervise, the way we train makes it impossible for instances like this to happen, and should they ever happen, that the way that we investigate things now with PIB and with the Federal Bureau of Investigation and with the Federal Police Monitor, that it can never ever be covered up. That in some small way, the lives that have been maimed and the lives that have been taken were not lives that have been or will be lived in vain. And so we are here to announce that we have arrived at a civil settlement with all of the families that were involved in this instance, as well as the Robert family, who lost a son sometime actually before Katrina, in an effort to make sure that the people of the city of New Orleans know that we are going to change as a people, and we are going to change as a city, because we choose to. And the people standing behind you have chosen to give us the grace and the blessing of forgiveness for what it is that happened to them. And I want every law enforcement officer in this city to know that we love you and we care for you. Both the chief and I have been to many funerals of police officers. And the families here know as well that the overwhelming majority of police officers are here to care for us, and they support you, and I support you, and we support you. But we do not support individuals, whether they're police officers or not, that do the wrong thing for the wrong reasons. Is that we as a community have to be one in making sure that we all protect each other for the right reason at the right time, from now until the end of time. And so I just, again, want to be very, very simple about this. The most important words that we can speak to each other in times of trouble are, I am sorry, and I forgive you. And I want the people of the city of New Orleans to know and to understand that those are not easy words, but they are necessary if we are going to change who we are, as wonderful as our city is, from a city of violence into a city of peace. And as the book says, let it begin with me. And so the city is here today to try to the extent that is humanly possible to bring closure to this dark, dark, dark time, and to pledge that it shall never happen again, because, as I have said, change is going to come. God bless you all, and thank you. Please let me call Chief Michael Harrison up.
Thank you, Mayor. We are so grateful for your leadership. And under the leadership of Mayor Landrieu, we are changing the entire culture of the New Orleans Police Department, starting with how we train new recruits, and veteran officers are undergoing more training than ever before. So that training includes important training like de-escalation training that prioritizes the safety of both officers and the citizen, and lays out a series of steps officers should take before deciding to use force. Once our officers are trained, we're making sure that they're properly supervised, so that we can make sure that the work that we train them to do is actually being done in the manner that we want them to do it. It's a comprehensive system of accountability that's holding officers responsibility for their actions, all the way from the top down and from the bottom up. In fact, we built a special bureau within the police department that's working every day to conduct audits in the department's compliance, to make sure we're in compliance with the federal consent decree. A recent audit of our compliance bureau showed that just this year, our officers turned on their body cameras nearly 100% of the time in every instance that they were required to do so. And on top of our own checks and balances, there's an unprecedented level of transparency within the New Orleans Police Department, and we have more independent reviews of our work than ever before, and we certainly welcome it. So our Public Integrity Bureau is embedded with members of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We have an Office of the Inspector General. We have an independent police monitor, the Metropolitan Crime Commission. We have our consent decree monitor, the Department of Justice, and of course a federal judge. If we find a problem, we do not make excuses. We take swift action against anyone who chooses to make a bad decision. And we put systems of accountability in place to make sure it doesn't happen again. So you have my commitment that we will continue to build a professional, community-oriented police department that will make no separation between the community and the police. We are all part of the community, and we are here to serve and protect you. We would do anything and everything we can do to prevent this kind of tragedy from ever happening again. And we will take aggressive action against any officer who chooses to violate our policies, the law, or the community's trust. So, Mayor, again, thank you again so much for your leadership. This time I'll call Sherelle Johnson.
Good afternoon. My name is Ms. Sherelle A. Johnson. I am the mother of the late James Brissett Jr., who was only 17 and was murdered on that Danziger Bridge. Since that time, it has been awful long and rough road, but me and my family got through it. And today, I'd like to say in all certainty, thank you, Mayor Landrieu, and the city of New Orleans for this open apology to me and my family, and we accept it wholeheartedly. Again, I'd like to say thank you, Mayor Landrieu. You've made my day, and now this is closure for me, and I can go forth feeling better, because I know the old law does not exist anymore. Thank all of you, and have a blessed holiday. Thank you so much.
Please let me introduce Dr. Rennell Madison of the Madison family.
Good afternoon, everyone. A little while ago, I read a statement from our brother Lance, and it embodies the family's feeling. I would, at this time, want to thank Mayor Landrieu and Chief Harrison for their words of hope for a good future for the city of New Orleans. Statement from my brother starts with, I give thanks to God for allowing us to be here today. I also thank God for allowing me to survive and tell the truth about what happened on the Danziger Bridge when my brother Ronald was killed and I was falsely arrested and accused of crimes which I did not commit. And I want to thank my family, mother, brothers and sisters, my attorneys, the Federal Department of Justice, and everyone who helped us through this horrific ordeal. This has been a long and painful process for me, our family and other families. I am praying that someday may be able to find forgiveness for those who caused harm to me and my brother Ronald and our family. I pray that God will give me the strength to forgive them. I have to be truthful and tell you that I'm struggling. This has been a very hard ordeal for me to get through. I want to look forward to a better place, not just dwell on the past, and know that forgiveness is an important part of moving forward. I ask for your prayers to help me through this process. We have learned a lot from this experience. One of the worst things that happened was the cover-up. It took 11 years for the police officers responsible for the crime to admit their wrongdoing. I hope that in the future, if something bad happens, the police officers will come forward and tell the truth and not try to cover it up. I believe that the mayor has done a very good thing with the consent decree and current reforms in the police department. I greatly appreciate the mayor and his staff for coming forward to have closure on this long-lasting ordeal, and thank him for working to bring the families in the police department and the city together. I am hoping that our police department is changing and that the city is becoming a better place for everyone. And I pray that nothing like this will ever happen again. I personally would like to thank the mayor and Chief Harrison for their commitment to improving things here in the city. I think their plan for the future of the city will be a great improvement for everyone, and stand as an example to not only the city, the state, and throughout the United States. Thank you again.
To the people of the city of New Orleans, we have maybe the best chance we've ever had in our life of healing this city and making it the city that we always dreamed she could be if we do it together. We can only go forward together. And I am hopeful that this tragic event and the consequences and today gives us an opportunity to take a step in that direction. So I commend it all to you. I want to thank all of you for coming and participating and doing the part that you have performed. And I want to again thank the families for having the courage to be here today. I'm going to take a couple of questions and I'll answer them to the best of my ability.
Start with David.
Yeah.
What's the total dollar amount of the settlement?
$13.3 million. There were 17 plaintiffs. Some of those were personal injury, some of those were survival actions, some of those were wrongful death actions. We will let the lawyers fill you in on details later.
Good. Anybody else?
Can you talk about are all of the officers, the claims against all the officers, are those all resolved as well?
All of the civil claims against the officers that the city could potentially be responsible for are resolved as it relates to the Glover case and the Madison case and the Danziger Bridge case and the Robert case.
Does it put this to bed? I mean, is everybody on board? I mean, it appears that way, but is everybody on board with this? Does this put this essentially to bed forever now, or is anything going to pop up in years?
Everybody and forever are pretty broad words. But to the best of my knowledge, yes, I obviously can't speak for everybody, but as it relates to the civil legal claims relating to the matters that I just clearly enunciated, those matters are put to rest. And then I was hoping, past the civil side, on the human side, as a city, that we're able to move forward together. And I'll let the families speak for themselves offline, should you choose to speak to the media.
Campbell.
Yes, Campbell.
Other than the monetary agreement, I don't know if this apology or this statement is part of the settlement. Is there any other aspect of the settlement?
No, the apology and the forgiveness are not part of the settlement. What was part of the settlement were the basis of the civil claims and the defenses that, by the way, were overseen by 2 federal judges, 2 magistrates, 2 mediators, and a whole host of lawyers, many of whom are here today, and I want to thank them. Also particularly want to thank the City Council who are with us today. The City Council was very, very strong in their support to begin to pay off judgments for this city. The discussion that we're having with the liability on the sheriff's consent decree, the firefighter's pension, the liabilities that were left to this city council and to this mayor are matters that have been very, very, very difficult for the city to work through. This city council has given to this city seven balanced budgets. It has given us a small surplus. It has given us a credit rating that is the best that the city has ever had, which is not only tremendous and great fiscal management, but really good, thoughtful, moral management as well. And we would not be here today without them giving us the resources necessary to confect this settlement. And particularly, I want to thank the councilors. Their job is to represent their clients zealously. Our city attorney's job is to represent the city zealously. They did it with great respect and dignity for each other, and did something that I thought created a wonderful sense of communion for the city.
Anybody else? Last one?
Is there any mechanism of how the settlement will be paid to the families? Is there a
From the
time
city,
frame, or
from the
is
city to them.
there a time frame though? Is there a time frame?
Yes, it'll be done over the next 2 years, starting 2. Yeah. You may recall that the city council authorized the city to sell bonds and raise a certain amount of money over a 2-year period of time, and the settlements were negotiated each individually, each differently, to be paid starting now over the next 24 months, and will be done and completed after that.